Hello, NBC, and welcome to Chapter 3, Privacy, Confidentiality, and Security. So what we're going to be doing in our first lecture video is we're going to be going through our key terms, and we are going to talk about pages 42 through 46. So I just want to make some points here. You guys, up here, you're going to have your objectives, and that's everything that we should be covering in this chapter. You have an outline, and then of course your key terms start. I'm going to give you some key terms that I want you to pay specific and close attention to. Now, I want to remind you that doesn't mean that they're all not important. I'm just giving you a few that are very, very important. And what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to highlight your key terms in your chapter. Okay, so anonymity is your first key term that I'm going to say you really need to, put a star by that one. Audit trail, authorization, business associates, confidentiality, consent, covered entities, disclosure, ethics, laws, minimum necessary standard, PHI, protected health information, and secondary use. Now, I put little stars by those and really make sure that you know those, because remember, when we start getting ready for NCCT, so many of these words come back up with our certification exam. Okay, so now we're going to get straight into our chapter, starting on page 42. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. So the very first thing that we're going to talk about is HIPAA. How many of you know about HIPAA? Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA. I don't know why this helps me remember. I always say it's HIPAA, not HIPPO. So that way I know that it's two A's. I don't know why that works for me. It's a silly little thing, but HIPAA stands for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. HIPAA not only makes health insurance portable, but also protects privacy and security. An amendment to HIPAA established a set of codes for claims transmitted electronically. The idea of having a patient's health information linked to the Social Security numbers imposed a high level of vulnerability to privacy, intrusion, and security threats. The HIPAA privacy rule was passed to shore up this weakness. So HIPAA is a privacy rule, it's a security rule, and it protects the portability of insurance information. Although privacy, confidentiality, and security have always been important in the world of healthcare, it was the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, that made it mandatory to have measures in place to protect all three. HIPAA was brought about to address the issues of protecting healthcare information in the electronic age. So if you look on page 42 under Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, that is the very first paragraph. So let's talk about what is privacy. Now, these terms are commonly used in medical offices. It is important to understand the definitions and the usages. For example, let's talk about ethics first. Ethics is a set of rules and standards to conduct that grow out of our shared understanding of right and wrong and govern our professional behavior. Laws are formal, enforceable rules and policies based on community standards of conduct. Privacy is a patient's freedom to determine when, how much, and under what circumstances his or her medical information may be disclosed. Let's talk about confidential versus anonymous. Confidentiality refers to how the recipient of the information handles information that a patient does not wish to share. Anonymity is information cannot be linked back to the patient. For example, performing lab tests using an ID number instead of a patient's name. So let's talk about the privacy rule. The HIPAA privacy rule establishes privacy standards for the use and disclosure of individually identifiable health information and promotes patients' understanding of their privacy rights. Unlike other provisions of HIPAA, the HIPAA privacy rule applies to health information in any form, in conversation, on paper, or in electronic format. Okay, so let's turn to page 45 in our textbook. Let's take a look at the job description, HIPAA Security Officer, Complete Healthcare Associates. So I just want you to read through that sample job description of a privacy official in a healthcare facility. Let's talk about disclosure documentation. The privacy rule, which took effect in 2003, specifies that each time personal health information is released for a purpose other than treatment, payment, or other healthcare operations, the disclosure must be documented and a record of it maintained for 6 years. So let's take a look at our slides. Patients are permitted to request a log of disclosure of their PHI, protected health information, which must include the following for each disclosure: the date, the name and the address, if it's known, or the entity who's receiving the PHI, a description of the PHI disclosed, an explanation of the purpose of the disclosure, or a copy of the patient's written authorization, a copy of a written request or disclosure, if any. So let's continue on with the disclosure documentation. Entities or providers are required to distribute the notice of privacy practice, designate a privacy officer, which we read the description of a privacy officer on page 45, remember. Provide authorization forms for release of PHI, implement policies to protect PHI, protected health information, develop procedures for correcting errors in the electronic health record, EHR, although that says HER, but it's EHR, and provide privacy training for staff, which means those lovely, lovely HIPAA trainings. Let's talk about components of an authorization form. Let's look in the textbook at box 3-1. That's going to be on page 46. Okay, this is going to be in your simulation playground, but this is where this slide is going to actually be real world, hands-on. You're doing it yourself, okay? So components of an authorization form is complete name, date of birth, address of the patient, a description of information to be disclosed, a description of information that may not be disclosed, names of individuals providing the information, list of individuals or entities to whom information may be disclosed, the date when disclosure expires, statement information, patient that authorization may be revoked if he or she changes his or her mind, notice advising patient that information disclosed could be redisclosed and no longer be protected, and patient's signature and date signed. Now, I want you to pay very, very close attention as you complete EHR exercise 3-1. let's talk about covered entities. Now, you remember this was one of our key terms that I said was very important. So covered entities are healthcare providers, health plan, and healthcare clearinghouses that transmit health information electronically. So what is a business associate? So a business associate are entities that help to carry out the healthcare activities and operations of the medical office. The business associate may be a subcontractor who creates, receives, maintains, or transmits PHI on behalf of the covered entity. All right, so that is the end of our lecture for today. I know it's kind of short, right? But we will continue on with lecture. This will be up on Friday. And so Monday, I'll continue on with the lecture. Have a great afternoon. If you guys need anything, let me know. Bye-bye.